Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Allahumma 'allimna ma yanfa'una wanfa'na bima 'allamtana wa zidna 'ilma. Allahumma inna nas'aluka 'ilman yanfa'una warfa'na. Allahumma inna nas'aluka 'ilman nafi'a wa rizqan wasi'a wa 'amalan mutaqabbala wa shifaa'an min kulli da' wa ba'du. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My apologies for coming this late to class. I didn't realize that it was 11:45 already. So in what remains of our time together, may Allah reward you abundantly for sitting out up until now. Normally what happens is they have one of the tutors dedicated to me at Mizan. So he normally follows me in all of my classes. And then when the period is finished, he gets me out of the class into the next class. I'm the only teacher they do that with here. Normally, I don't know what happened with the administration now. So Muhammad Amin normally is the one that sits with me. So he comes to me with the first class, he checks, my coffee is there, the sister's there, the class is starting on time. And then he comes and 5 minutes before the period takes me into the next period. And then, and then they bring me to this period. So, but be it as it may, my unrestricted and unreserved apology for coming this late to class. Let us do an introduction to this very important surah. And just to get us going again, we have a certain methodology in terms of our classes. The first issue that we raise would be the issue of the word surah. So if you were to teach anybody a given surah, how would you start? Looking at the word surah. What did we say about the word surah? The word surah translates as chapter, yes, that's on its place. But more significant than that would be that the word surah means, literally it means a hole. But there's a synonym in Arabic for that which is jidar, which also means a wall. But the difference between the two is jidar refers to a low hole and surah refers to a high hole. And the reason why a surah is referred to as a surah, a high hole, because its meanings, irrespective of whether it's brief or not brief, its meanings are high and noble. So therefore, like Sheikh Salih Al-Abbadi used to say, Sheikh Salih Abbadi used to say, there's no such thing as a short surah. Can you understand the significance of that now? No such thing as a short surah. Because a surah, whether 3 verses or more, it's still noble and high in terms of its meaning. That's the first thing. Okay. The second thing what we address is, we're looking at a particular surah. What's the name of the surah? The name of the surah, right? So in terms of the text in front of us, it reads Suratul Qadr. Suratul Qadr. Qadr means, what does Qadr mean literally? Power. Is there another name? Suratul Qadr, Suratu Laylatul Qadr, Suratu Inna Anzalnahu Fi Laylatul Qadr. Many times the first line of a given chapter, it doubles up as the name of that chapter. For example, we said Suratu Sharh and Suratu Alam Nashrah. So here Suratul Qadr and Suratu Inna Anzalnahu Fi Laylatil Qadr. Okay. There's a few things that one can discuss about Suratul Qadr to put it into context. Suratul Qadr runs around one theme. What is the theme of Suratul Qadr? So, okay, the night of power, the benefits of the night of power. What is significant about the night of power? The revelation of the Quran. So the night of power is significant because of its association. Its association to what? To the revelation of Quran. But in many traditions and narrations, there appears to be an apparent contradiction. And the companions asked the Prophet ﷺ, and the successors, the tabi'in, they asked the companions. And when they asked the companions, they said, the same issue that's besetting you, beset us, and we asked the Prophet ﷺ. What was the issue? The issue is that in certain places in Quran, Allah talks about, we came out of the month of Ramadan, and now we come into the month of Hajj. So in the month of Ramadan, we read the verse quite often, Shahru Ramadan, the month of Ramadan. What happened in the month of Ramadan? Again, it's significant because of an associated event that took place in the month of Ramadan. And what was that? Unzila fihi al-Quran. The Quran was revealed. So now, the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was revealed, just plant that idea in your mind. Then in Surah Al-Dukhan, Allah talks about Inna anzalnahu fi laylatin mubarakatin. We revealed it, referring to Quran, in a blessed night. And then lo and behold, we come to this chapter and it says Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil Qadr. We revealed it on the night of power. There appears to be an apparent contradiction. Added to that, the real dynamic is that the Quran was revealed piecemeal over a period of 23 years. So now it appears to be quite contradictory. But there's nothing contradictory about Quran. If it had come from other than Allah, لَوَجَدُوا فِي اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا, then they would have found a lot of discrepancies in Quran. But because it comes from Allah, there's no discrepancies. Maybe there's an apparent contradiction as a result of our perception, but no contradiction. So how do you harmonize that? Very easily. What happens? The blessed night and the night of power is one night. That blessed night and night of power, it takes place in a blessed month. What month is that? Ramadan. Right? And this all happens when the Quran is extracted from the preserved tablet and sent down to the first heaven. So that's the revelation, one revelation, to come down. And from the over piecemeal of 23 years, based on the knowledge and the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran is revealed piecemeal over a period of 23 years. So that is from one aspect, the broad context of Surah Al-Qadr. I think it teaches us another important lesson also, that when we read Quran, the important thing is that Quran can never be read in isolation. You at least need to be knowledgeable of certain of the other verses to gain a proper appreciation of Surah Al-Qadr. So you understand the context now, practically over a period of 23 years. In a blessed night, the name of that blessed night is the night of power. It takes place in the month of Ramadan, and that talks about the revelation from the preserved tablet to the first heaven. Thereafter it came down as the need arose upon the heart of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah talks about it, وَإِنَّهُ لَتَنْزِيلُ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ نَزَلَ بِهِ الرُّوحُ الْأَمِينَ عَلَى قَلْبِكَ لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُنذِرِينَ. From Allah, via the agency of the Archangel Jibreel, and he places it upon your heart, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. So these are some of the introductory remarks that we can make about Surah Al-Qadr. So to recap that, inshallah, and I'm going to leave you on this particular point. I don't want to have a rush through the surah as such. So the first point we discussed was the name of the chapter. It's called a surah. Why is it called a surah? We gave two names. The first name is Surah Al-Qadr. The second name is Surah Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil Qadr. Then we looked at the verse in terms of the theme. What is the theme? The revelation of the Quran. There appears to be some apparent contradiction in terms of the revelation of the Quran, and those are encapsulated in the verses which I read, but it's equally easy for you to harmonize between those apparent contradictions. So the second, what I want to leave you with is that the night of power has a great significance. Not so. Has Allah singled out the night of power as a specific night, or is it something that we need to search for? I speak under correction, but I think increasingly the perception of the night of power being on the 27th night is starting to change in Cape Town. I think people are like sort of more aware when they talk about Ramadan, they talk about the first 20 days, which is significant, but the last 10 days is more significant. And generally in terms of the rhetoric, in terms of the discussion, when people start talking about the last 10 days, they single out the odd nights. And then they quick to add that every odd night has the potential, the 21st, the 23rd, the 25th, the 27th, the 29th, all has the potential to be the night of power. And this is a form of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because it facilitates for you to be engaged more in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Alternately, had it been a specific night. Otherwise, we would have, in a sense, lived for the 27th night. But the fact that we don't know whether it's the 27th night, it means we do our best to enliven every odd night. And in doing so, we worship Allah more. Other than gaining the benefit, definitely, of the night of power, we also engaged more in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, that's the first point. It's one of the odd nights. And scholars differ. Some say it's fixed, like it's either the 21st or the 23rd or the 25th or the 27th or 29th, but we don't know. So then, enliven every odd night. Others say no, it is something which like translocates itself every year. So the one year it may be on the 21st night, the next year it may be on the 23rd night, the next year it may be on the 25th, 27th, 29th, like that. Right? So those are the differing opinions as regards to it. At the end of the day, the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had not singled it out is an act of mercy, because it facilitates for us to be engaged on every odd night in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We pray that in retrospect that Allah has granted us this night in the month of Ramadan, and future nights to come that Allah grants us the same. And that's the second benefit of the night of power. Many nights which we celebrate, for example, Isra and Mi'raj, which is on the 27th of Rajab. That is a significant night for us, isn't it? It's significant because of its historical value. On that night, some 1444 years back, the Prophet ﷺ undertook a journey. So the historical value, the benefit is not recurring. Are you with me? So the value of that night is of a historical nature. And what we get out of celebrating that event because of the historicity that is contained within that night. So it's a point of remembrance. Not every year on the 27th of Rajab, there's certain benefits attached to that night. No, the benefits attached to that night was specific to that night some 1444 years ago. Is the night of power the same, or is it recurring? It's recurring. So there are certain nights that are of historical value, and then there are other nights which are significant in terms of the recurring benefit every year. Leave alone every year, but we might be at night here, but it's day somewhere else. So let's say the 27th night is the night of power. It's going to be for us in relation to us here, but it's going to be for people on the other side of the world in relation to the night that they may be spending. So it's recurring in every sense of the word. So the night of power stands out from so many different perspectives. And the last perspective which I highlighted now was the fact that it's a recurring benefit that recurs every year. Allah grant us the understanding. We smack on 12 p.m.